Just do it.
Let's
Do
do
you
it.
have a message that you'd like to get out to the world? Maybe you don't know how to do it. Well, perhaps art is the way because we have an amazing guest here who's going to share some of the ways he's getting his message out to the world. Hey, everybody, welcome to Voluntary Living with me, David James Rodriguez. We're building a world based on consent, self ownership, and freedom. And I am so excited to be with our guest today because I would consider him a luminary and one of the most important artists on the planet. I know those are big words, but let me just read you some of his short bio before we get into the content here. Grant Present Ellman is a multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, and producer from Sedona, Arizona. His 2021 Truth Bomb calling out the scam of COVID-19 and government was censored from Spotify within a week of release. And he has amazing songs, anthems, in fact, playing on the stages of Anarchapulco, The Greater Reset, Conscious Life Expo. And in 2024, he'll be on the main stage at Rise and Vibes with a legendary lineup like Steel Pulse, Tribal Seas, J-Book, and a lot of other people. And his latest release, Sing and Pray, calls for peace in Gaza and illuminates the erroneous belief in authority is the root cause of every war and genocide in history. So an amazing bio, as you can see. Grant, brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's an honor to be here with you. And yeah, just grateful we've connected on this path as brothers and freedom minded connections. And it's been great to get to know you more over the last couple of years. And I'm just excited to be here today and to share some thoughts with your audience.
Yeah, totally, man. And the audience hasn't listened to his amazing tracks. I listen to it on YouTube. Other people might listen to other places. But one of my favorites, Grant, is Freedom is Ours for the Taking, History in the Making. And that's, I mean, one of the anthems that I love because people need to realize where we are in human history. And everything's up for grabs right now. You know, the financial system, the school system, medical system, all these old, ancient control mechanisms, which these dudes have been controlling for a long time, they're going down. They've lost control of the information. They've lost control of the consciousness, and it's time to take it back. And I think that's one of the great songs and amongst many that you've created to help raise some of the consciousness. But I first, I think, heard that song in 2017 at the Jackalope Freedom Festival. And we're out there having a good time with the bonfire, and you were jamming that. And I was like, well, I don't know what that song is, but I ended up getting the name of it. And I was like, dude, this thing is amazing. So maybe you want to share, I gave the short bio there, but you want to share a little bit, maybe with the audience, what your dreams are and visions or intentions as an artist, because my small grasp of artistry with comedy, because I'm delving into some comedy stuff
Yeah.
and learning some of these things, like art is the transcendent tool. So if you have a message to get out there, you're getting your message out there. So what would you want to maybe just start with as being an artist? And it seems like you were, first of all, you're highly talented. It seems that might have come from a young age, but when did you start to realize that you are an artist and that you have a message and you have some talents and gifts to get out to the world? When did that all begin?
Yeah, thanks. So I have been playing music my whole entire life and started off really young playing classical piano. And then I started playing in rock bands when I was a little older, like 9, 10 years old. Played guitar and then got behind the drum kit because my band didn't have a drummer and I just kind of figured it out. And then that has turned into basically my primary instrument now is the drum kit and now vocals as well. But it
Mm,
wasn't until, COVID really that I started to actually speak my voice through music. But prior to that, I was producing a lot of other artists, and I was using my skills and my production abilities to, create records and help other artists get their voice out there. And then when COVID happened, I kind of found myself in a situation where I just felt that I had to speak the truth, and my voice hadn't really been used a lot, and I just slowly started to exercise my voice more and more. And through that process, I began to create some freedom songs and songs like "Ours for the Taking," like you said, and
mm.
"Scam," and some of those other songs that they felt like they wrote themselves. Honestly, I don't really feel like I even wrote them. I was just kind of pissed off, didn't really know what to do.
Right.
And I would say one of my mentors, Mark Passio, who I'll probably talk about quite a bit in this interview,
Sure.
he was just saying, you know, his delivery style of serving the truth is very intense and harsh for a lot of people. And he says that people are always telling him, you need to just tone it down a little bit and you'll reach way more people. And he's like, well, I don't want to tone it down. Get as offended as you like. That's what he always says. Get as offended as you like. And I'm not here to reach the masses. I'm here to inspire other teachers to reach the masses, because the more teachers we have, the better. And I feel like now I would say I'm in a similar position as I'm working on trying to reach as many people as possible through the music, and knowing, like you said, that music and art in general is the highest form of alchemy of our own personal process, our own healing process, and then the healing process of the world
Mm.
through that osmosis. So that's a little bit about how I got creating this freedom music, and now my mission is to just serve as much freedom music as possible, and create really radio quality records and radio level, top level productions and top level live performances and shows, so that
Mm.
there's no reason why this can't reach a massive audience. You know, I have
Mhm.
dreams of playing Red Rocks. I have dreams of selling out giant venues and speaking this
Yes.
freedom message to huge stadiums full of people. So I'm not going to stop until that happens. And even if it doesn't
Yes.
happen, I'm still not going to stop. So whatever
Yes.
happens, happens. It's God's fate. But I feel that that is what I'm here to do, is to use the high vibrational frequency of music that opens people's hearts so that the mind can be more receptive to receiving messages of truth. Because we all know in the freedom movement that when you try to just truth, and just be telling people the truth, a lot of times people don't want to hear it. They get
Yeah.
defensive and they start to close down, because it's just difficult to receive truth when it's not coming from a higher frequency. And I think music is one of those tools that allows us to transmit the truth through a higher frequency, and so that it can be more palatable for the masses. And
Mhm.
so that's what myself, my friends like Elias Clay and other freedom artists, Illuminati Congo, who we're all down at Greater Reset, that's what we're all working on. And so
Yeah.
it's exciting to see where that's going.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was down there too, and that concert was amazing, and a bunch of other amazing artists down there too. And it's very hopeful to see that the artists are getting the messages out as well, because I agree with you. Like we have the logical framework on the left side of our brain, like government's illegitimate, coercion's wrong. We got that, but now it's like, okay, now how are we going to get this out there for the people? And I mentioned the Bob Marley documentary, or the film that came out, and I watched another documentary which was called Rebel Music. And you probably know his story better than I do, but he came from the ghetto in Jamaica, and he rose to international stardom. And one of his great quotes that I love, he says, "I will single-handedly fight the war with my music."
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like he knew what he was doing, and he's like, if I use violence, then whose problem am I solving? And that's my conclusion too. And it's kind of non-aggression, peaceful approach, Gandhi or Martin Luther King. But them dudes were moving the masses. You know, in Gandhi's case, hundreds of millions of people, non-compliance, non-cooperation, and I think that's what it's going to take. And to see the artists down there in Morelia, Mexico, at that concert, I'm like, okay, dude, this is amazing. And to see you start to rise is very exciting too, because so many tracks that you're putting out, and you know, I believe you're writing, you're producing, you're video recording and editing and doing all that yourself. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. I do all of it myself, because I don't really have the budget to pay, all these people to do all these different things. So I've just worked over the years at accumulating and, refining as many skills as possible so that I can be as self-sufficient in my creative process as I can. And
Mm.
that enables me to get more work done and put more music out there, which I'm working on constantly. It's just upping that prolific creativity as much as possible. So
Right. And you have more artistic freedom, right? You don't have a label or a producer trying to tell you or direct you somewhere. You have freedom of expression, to follow where the spirit or the higher self takes you.
definitely. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I noticed when I was getting a degree in music industry from University of Southern California, when I was in this this mindset graduating high school, I went through the whole school system, and we could probably talk much more in depth or even do a whole podcast on the school system, which we
Yeah.
are both on the same page about that. But I
Yeah.
was coerced by by family members into
Mhm.
attending a 4-year university. So naturally, with my inclination towards music, I decided to study music industry and production, and it was somewhat valuable. I wouldn't say it was worth $250,000. I would have rather bought a house for that amount of money, but
Yeah.
it was somewhat valuable. And then graduating from there and seeing that the kind of the dark underbelly of the music industry, and how a lot of my friends got sucked, very talented musicians, a lot of them just got sucked into essentially making music for the machine, which in my
Mm.
opinion is pushing a message of communism, pushing a message of, all of the leftist woke culture heavily, and all of these kind of perverted, distorted messages that the music industry and Hollywood and the establishment wants to push,
Mm.
because they have a monopoly on the vast majority of the commercialized art that's being created. And
Hmm.
so at that time I just realized, I was like, this isn't for me. I'm going to have to figure out another way that I can earn money so that I can focus on doing music that's authentic to
Hmm.
myself and not having to compromise my integrity in order to get the message out there, or to, be successful in music, whatever that means. So it
Mm.
is also encouraging to see that nowadays, with the rise of the independent media, there are a lot of freedom, sovereign artists who are not
Yeah.
compromising their message, and they're able to do it independently. And it's
Mm.
just about striking that balance between finding a team of people who can help you, booking agents and people who can help get the music out there, while still not kowtowing to some label that wants to take, the labels now, they do 360-degree contracts, which basically means that they create all these different income streams for you, and then they siphon off a vast majority of all of those income streams. They control all of your income streams.
Mm.
Whereas, a lot of artists like, Jimmy Levy and Congo, and there's a lot of people out there, Free Soul, lots of great artists now who are doing the DIY approach and figuring out how to make it work. And it's really inspiring to see that it is possible to spread a message of integrity and still be able to get it out there in a big way. And I think that's becoming more and more possible. Also with the rise of NFTs and stuff like that, where people can be paid for their work in a real way, and not have any of those payments be, over the table, so to speak. That's pretty cool to see. And I just think that there's a lot of exciting potential for creatives in this time period, where we don't have to be at the mercy of the slavery systems that have been holding humanity down for such a long time.
That's right. Yeah, the monopoly is the media and these dudes. I mean, rightfully so. I mean, even though part of them are psychopathic, I would say part of them are just opportunists, and maybe crony capitalists that just, hey, let's just make a lot of money. Who cares about these people? Kind of their Darwinian type of thinking. And what's rising, it seems to me, is the humanity of the human family. Like as a man growing up, I didn't hear too much love expression in my household from other men. Like I heard it from my mom, but not so much from my dad, and I'm half Mexican. So there's kind of that, like, hey, tough guy type thing,
Yeah.
and then as I got older, I started to realize like I feel love, I want to express love, but I want to be like gay or effeminate or something. And I found out the Greek have 8 types of love, and one of them is agape love, and that's love of humanity. So that's not like I love you, or romantically, or like a blood relative, but like just the humanity. And so that helped me with my expression of love to genuinely express love for people. And these guys, I think, are absent of that and or have scarcity mindset or something. So this type of conversation of like we're all one family is starting to really rise, brothers and sisters, and we don't even have to like each other, but it's like we respect each other, we respect your humanity, you're a soul. Everyone listen to this, you're significant, your consciousness and your beingness is very powerful. And it actually rolls into the next question about being present, and your name Presence, I love that. You want to share how you came up with that name? Because I thought that was a beautiful story, and there's some great meaning behind that.
Yeah, definitely. I came up with that name when I was several years ago. It was back in 2017 or 2016 when I was studying a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and he talks a lot about the generous present moment, where in the generous present moment, everything is abundant. You know, the
Mm,
presence gives you everything that you need and blesses you with everything that you need. And over time, I realized that the process of creating music is all about that. It's all about presence, because when you are fully in the present moment, then you become tapped into something higher than the ego self. You become tapped into the all self, or the God self, or
mm,
the one source of consciousness, whatever you want to call it. There's many words for it, but I think that that's where the genius music can really come through, and the not just for music, but the genius of every creative person. And when you were saying a minute ago, you know, we're all here for some kind of purpose, I would agree 100%. I think that one of the best things we can do right now for the love of humanity, like you said, what's the word that the Greek word for that?
agape.
Agape. So for the agape, for the love of humanity, one of the best things that we can do is recognize the gifts in others, and then also encourage others to use those gifts and use them
Mm,
wisely. And
mhm,
I think that's one of the main things that I feel inspired to do, is not just through making my music, but using my music also as a form of inspiration for others to also get out there and spread their truth in whatever way that they feel called to do so. But
mhm,
going back to the topic of presence, I'd say, yeah, it's that juice, it's that prana, it's that pure life force that comes through us when we get our ego self out of the way, the thinking mind out of the way, and we can just
mm.
be there to receive whatever God has in store for us, or in store for greater humanity, for the agape, for the love of humanity. So
Absolutely, man. Well, one thing about the present moment, I'm listening to some Eckhart Tolle lately, The Power of Now, and I had this audiobook sitting on my shelf for a long time, and I'd listened to some clips of interviews, but then I actually got into the book, and it's all right there. You know, like there is no past, there is no future. All we have is this moment, and this is the most important moment of our life right now. And here it again is right now again. You know, like it's just repetitive. We can be here, and this is why I got so much um joy by seeing children play and learn and watching children, because like you, I think you're probably a very attentive, conscious, curious child. And like we're observing the people around us, and I see a 5-year-old, or I see an 8-year-old or something like that, and I'm like, that's me. I remember being 5 or 8 and just having all this like visions or intense questions, and like what's going on. And so
yeah,
the children are, I think, the epitome of being in the present moment, right? Like a 5 to, we'll call it, I don't know, 2 to 7-year-old, but they're here with you right now, and they're like, well, I got to go to work and save money to do this, or I gotta do this for later today, and they're like, no, now we got
yeah,
now. And I
exactly.
think that yeah, there's a superpower there. And the fact that you said you were learning and practicing music at a young age, that's very exciting and curious to me too. So you come from a musical family, or did you just like pick it up? Are you like some type of early starter, or your parents put that around you? How did you get interested in music at such a young age?
Yeah, I don't come from a musical family really, but my parents, for whatever reason, they just decided when we were super young, myself and my sister, who's 2 years younger than me, they decided that we would be forced, without beyond our will. So that's another interesting topic. Now I'm very grateful at this age that I was forced, coerced, whatever you want to call it, into
Yeah.
pursuing music for all those years, but it was just decided that that would be part of my education through the end of high school. And it kind of the classical piano training really ended, when I went to high school, but it was something that I did from about age 5 on. And it was such a gift, because certain neural networks in the brain are extremely neuroplastic at that age. And so, for example, there's something called absolute pitch, which is, and I'm not trying to say this to toot my own horn. It's just something that I'm illustrating why the power of starting children young and giving children the ability to pick up music at a young age.
Hmm.
Absolute pitch is the ability to hear a note and be able to recognize what that note is, or hear a frequency and recognize what the frequency is, or to be
Hmm.
able to sing a frequency, just off of out of thin air, right? and sing it precisely. And
Mhm.
that's something that 1 in 10,000 people are able to do.
Mm.
And in my piano training, I think every single child that was in that early training was able to do that by like age 7 or something like that.
Wow.
And with through some of my research later in life, I actually found out that most children or most people who develop that ability usually develop it before the age of 7, like the vast majority of people. So there's that time period in your early life where the brain is so neuroplastic and you can learn
Yeah.
new skills, you can learn new languages extremely quickly. Bilingual, trilingual children, it's typically, learned before the age of 10.
Mhm.
And so I'm just grateful to my parents that they did kind of force that on me. Whether that's
Right.
right or not, that's another question. Because
We
there was
thank him.
definitely,
We
yeah,
thank him.
there was times where I was like not having it. I would be,
Yeah.
studying and after school, and I hated it, and I was not vibing it. And fortunately, that pushed me into other genres of music and pushed me into punk rock, where I could, rebel against that a little bit, and then found my ways into other music forms. Um, but so that's a little answer as to why I got started early, and I think
Mhm.
the power of understanding the child's mind, because the child does have such a mystical mind, right? Like what you were talking about a minute ago, you have these memories of your early years where you had all these questions and you had all this creativity flowing, and I feel the same
Mhm.
way. And I think that it's just the repetitive programming that takes us out of the present moment, and it constantly makes us focus on the future and the
Yeah.
past and regretting the past and looking towards the future, or acquiring new things, save up money so you can acquire this or
Yeah.
that or whatever,
Yeah.
the monopoly game and all
Yeah.
this stuff. And it doesn't really have any true meaning. The only thing that has true meaning is being present and enjoying and feeling fulfilled in what you're doing in this now moment. And when you're able to do that consistently, it creates huge amounts of change in this reality. And
Mhm.
so I think that
Yeah.
that's really all of our calling, is to figure out something that we feel fulfilled doing, and we can be really present with what we're doing, and then just
Yes.
do it as much as possible. Just find something you enjoy and then figure
Mhm.
out how to make that useful. And if more
Mhm.
people would focus on that, if more children were taught to focus on that rather than go to this school and then go to that school and then go to that school so you can get this degree, so you can get this job and then work your way up, it's like, no, just
Yeah.
enjoy what you're doing and do it really
Yeah.
well, and then all the abundance that you need will be provided to you, because you'll be providing all of this value naturally to the world through whatever your inherent gifts are.
Yeah, well said. One of my favorite guys is Bruce Lipton, who also like rolls
Yep.
around with Joe D. But he has a great quote, which is something like, your body knows when you're doing something that you should be or enjoy doing. He says it's called enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Like when you're feeling it and you're just like so excited. Like for me, that's what I start to get tapped into, to break some of these chains. I went to public school as well. I got a business degree, which was almost useless. I'm sure your education with the learning about the recording industry is a little bit more helpful, but business is so general. Um, but it's like they teach you to get a job, but it's like the job. What's that? A job is what somebody else gives to you. But what I want, and what I think probably the listeners out here, we want a good life. And
Yeah.
so this is a better question of like, what are we doing here? And so my definition of education is what one does to himself to create a good life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, feel free to have any if you have any comments on that. But it's like, so I went to the public school system and I had to break these chains off. And, thankfully, God has some plant medicine on the earth to help me break some of these chains, like a psilocybin and such. And it's like, oh, so it's breaking us free of these systems which have been literally like tattooed on our brain. And even now, I'm realizing, like, dude, I still got programs, but there's less of them. And I got to,
Yeah.
remember and recreate and repeat, and now it's like conscious self-talk, conscious creation versus all the subconscious coming from the culture, coming from the music. And that's why I think you're such a critical and inspirational and transformational voice, is when we're listening to your tunes, we're now reprogramming with ourselves. The realignment song where you quote Mark Passio, and this is the latest songs you've done with Elias Clay, which are amazing. You want to share about some of the lyricists or how you create lyrics or that creative process, because that's like people don't realize how much heart and soul one needs to put into that. But when it goes on the record, it's just like, oh yeah, it's so easy. And maybe it is easy. Like you said, the Scamdemic song and Freedom is Ours for the Taking song. I think you said those are the ones that just kind of like flow through you. But maybe talk about a little bit your writing process and how you get to these lyrics that are really visionary and I think helping us with our programming consciously and subconsciously. So how do you get all these amazing words?
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, you know, I think that the lyrical process is something I'm still very in the early phases of, and I'm still working on a lot, and even just opening my voice and all of that stuff is stuff that I feel like I'm in the early phases of, and I still have a long way to go. But something that has helped me out a lot with that process is a tool called Rhymer's Block, and this is a tool that my former music partner and co-founder of Prezence, David James, also a David James. That's a weird coincidence,
That
but
is
shout out
weird.
to
Yeah.
David because
Yeah.
he turned me on to Rhymer's Block. And Rhymer's Block is basically a tool that when you type in a word, it will instantly pop up the entire list of words that rhyme with that word.
Mm.
And so what I like to do, I don't like to rely on it too heavily, but I like to maintain my focus on whatever the message, the underlying message is that I want to get across. And then maybe I'll have one line, and at the end of that line, it'll finish with a word, and then with that intention of maintaining that message, there will be a list of words that pops up, and then I'll just pick a word that rhymes and then just run with that for the next line. And
Hmm.
that has really helped my writing process out a lot in terms of just like I feel like I can bang out a whole song, 3 verses and a hook typically in a day if it's flowing well. And so that's kind of the lyrical process for me a little bit, and the source of the inspiration, I think up until this point a lot of it has come from, you know, being dissatisfied, being indignant, being
Yeah.
frustrated with the system, and then using the lyrics as a way to alchemize my pain and
Hmm.
alchemize my own, you know, inner healing journey into something that's more beautiful that I can share with other people, that might be relatable to other people, and you know, hopefully help other people with their own healing journey as well. But
Hmm.
you know, for example, the R's for the Taking song, I was on my way down to an Acapulco, and I had this beat on my phone. And typically I'll start with, because I'm a producer first and a lyricist second, I'll
Hmm.
typically I'm working on kind of, you know, bringing the lyrics to that level, but typically I'll have a beat or an instrumental track that I've been working on, and then I'll just wait for that right moment for the lyrics to flow through. And so I
Hmm.
had actually just gotten kicked off of a flight because I was refusing to wear my mask on the flight. And I was in
Yeah.
Dallas. I was in Dallas, Fort Worth, or Houston, I think it was one of the big airports in Texas. And I was on a connecting flight and I was going to Acapulco,
Hmm.
and the flight was all the way like a 30-minute taxi from the gate. Like we had been taxiing across multiple bridges.
Hmm.
For whatever reason, the runway was really far from the gate. So I was kind of pushing my luck a little bit. I was like, you know, like we're really far from the gate. There's no way they're gonna turn this plane around. And
Hmm.
so one of the flight attendants was kind of giving me shit because I was just like keeping my stupid face muzzle underneath my chin and just taking sips of water, you know, every
Oh
like
my
10,
God.
20, 30 seconds. And she's like, you need to put your mask over your nose. And
Mm.
I was like, no, I'm just drinking water here. You know, it's no big
Mm.
deal. And after a while, they publicly shamed me in front of
Hmm.
the entire airplane.
Yeah.
They said there's
Yeah.
a passenger in seat number, whatever seat I was in, and they publicly shamed me and then said we're going to turn the plane around and take this passenger back to the gate. So the entire flight of, like, you know, I don't know, 60 people was late because they taxied back to the gate, and then taxied back out again, probably pushing the flight an entire hour late just so that they could publicly shame me and make me
Unbelievable.
purchase a new flight. So then when I
Mm.
was on my new flight down to Acapulco, I was like pissed, you know, I just had to
Mm.
pay $500 out of pocket for another flight to an Acapulco. Now I'm coming out of pocket for my travel expenses. I'm all pissed
Oh
off, but
gosh.
I'm like, this is like, I don't care. Like, I'm going down to be with my freedom family, you know,
That's
like
right.
freedom
Hmm.
is ours for the taking, you know, like
Mm.
we're taking our freedom.
Mm.
We're choosing to you know, take it no matter what, because freedom isn't something that's just granted to you by some
Yeah.
authority. It's something that you
Yeah.
have to claim. We have to claim it. And so that was kind of the
Yes.
thought that was running through my head. And then, you know, on that flight, 2 hour flight or whatever, I just, and the whole song just came out, you know?
Wow.
So that's kind
That's
of like,
awesome.
that's a little bit about the lyrical process. And yeah, again, I have to shout out my bro David for, you know, encouraging me to write more lyrics and showing me that tool, Rhymer's Block. And, you know, if there's any other people who are aspiring lyricists or vocalists or rappers or whatever, like that's definitely something I would check out.
Amazing. Yeah, I love how you took that energy, and the word that I love is transmute it, right?
Yeah,
Because even now, dude, like I'm aware of some of this conscious stuff, but there's still the part of me, and for me, it's the school system, right? Like the school system is diabolical, intolerable, unacceptable. And when I see what's going on, even in my small little hometown of Mount Shasta, you know, this like what they got three traffic signals, you know, and two grocery stores, you know, it's like
yeah,
they're putting the tampons in the boys' bathroom, and I'm like, what the hell is going on around here? So I still have this fire, and I think that's one of the gifts from God, because one of my mentors who I asked after I realized that money's not the goal in life, right? Which I was sold most of my education and indoctrination. I asked him, I said, so how do you find your purpose in life? And he said, you find an injustice on the earth and you spend your life trying to correct that injustice. And
yeah,
I said, oh, dude, I got that. So the school system for me is one of the most unacceptable, diabolical injustices. So that's probably the fire. And so when you got kicked off that plane, you didn't let that anger, frustration consume you. You were able to transform, transmute it into some creative outlet. And that's something I think a lot of us could learn from. Some of the people out there are starting to awaken to what's going on by all these predator psychopaths. They're not elites. So if we can consider not calling them elites, I know you haven't, but these other people out there, you know, like, no, the elite people are people that love people, have compassion and forgive people, inspire, encourage people. These are the high level people. This is Bob Marley. This is Gandhi, you know,
yeah,
and some of the people who are considered voluntarists, you know, really inspiring people. You're one of them, Brent, you know, and there's a handful of people that it's like, oh, not only are these people talented and good hearted, but they have the message, you know, of do whatever you want, just don't initiate harm against peaceful people or the property. Like this is the fundamental
yeah,
moral code. And you want to talk about the song where, which is, well, you mentioned Passio inspired you a lot, but the song where you quote him in the lyrics, and I think that's relevant because the people that kicked you off the plane and the people who kicked me off the plane, I got kicked off the plane, I got arrested in post office for all this stuff. They're not the predators at the top. These are low-level order followers, and maybe that will, you know, play right into Mark Passio's work, who says that order followers are the ones who perpetuate slavery. But what's another quote that you
yeah.
use in one of your songs?
Yeah, well, one of them, I actually just finished up this track and I filmed the video for it in Jamaica. I had originally made the track years ago listening to Passio, and then the instrumental got kind of outdated production wise. And then recently I was working on a beat and I was like, oh, this actually fits really well with this vocal. So I redid that track.
Hmm.
So, but you know, one of the lines is a right is an action that does not cause harm to another sentient being. And he
Hmm.
says that the average person on the earth at this time cannot define what a right is, and that's why we're losing our rights, because they
Yeah.
do not understand that a right is an action that does not cause harm or does not initiate aggression against another sentient being.
Hmm.
And so these are the kinds of things that I'm really working on codifying and putting into the high frequency music so that they can become more widespread knowledge, because
Hmm.
these are things that children in their inherent perception of reality, they actually know this to be true.
Yep.
And I believe all humans actually know in our hearts that a
Yep.
right is an action that does not initiate harm to another sentient being.
Hmm.
And that is, you know, that's really the basis of voluntarism, right? It's
Yeah.
Howard the other day posted a meme which was like a golden scale balancing two things. I don't know if you saw that meme,
No, I
but
didn't.
on one side it said do no harm, and then on the other side it said take no shit. So on the left side, do no harm, that's the non-aggression principle, and then on the
Yeah,
right side, take no shit, that's the self-defense principle, which is
that's right.
if somebody initiates harm against you, then you
Hmm.
always have the right to defend yourself, which gets
Yeah.
into our right to bear arms and why that's
Yeah.
fundamental to human freedom. Because
Mhm.
if we allow a parasitic ruling class to have the exclusive right to initiate deadly force against others, then we're setting ourselves up for a slavery system. And that's how
Yeah.
all of the giant communist regimes have always come to power, is by
Mhm.
taking away that right from the average common man and
Yeah.
only allowing a parasitic ruling class to maintain the right to use deadly force, right?
Mhm.
And even now, it's like if you use deadly force against an aggressive cop who was trying to, write you a traffic citation, basically the implied, when even as something as simple as a traffic stop, right?
Mhm.
The implied, the implied aggression there, the implied duress that you're under when you're under a traffic stop is, if you don't stop right now, or if you don't pay this ticket or this fine or this extortion fee, you're going to be, probably locked up, or worse, shot and
Yep.
killed.
Yep.
That is the implied use of force or the
Mhm.
implied aggression.
Mhm.
And so in this world that we're living in right now, we have to be wise about how we do use that right to self-defense, because even though we do have that right against the ruling class, it's not going to become a actual, how do you say, it's not going to become a viable right until enough people in mass exercise it.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, just kind of getting back to the natural law stuff and Mark
Mhm.
Passio and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I think that's the fundamental principle of my music, is figuring out how to share a message of natural law with mixed with high vibrational knowledge, sacred knowledge of how we can level up our frequency, live in more abundance, live in more peace, live in more harmony with those around us, live in more creativity. But at
Mm.
its core, we don't have the freedom to actually live in peace and harmony and creativity if we don't understand what a right is, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the fundamental thing that I'm working on getting across, is teaching that through the music. And that's what Passio says that he's working on, is inspiring as many other people as possible to become teachers of natural law, so that we can explain and educate these extremely simple principles of do no harm, do not initiate harm, take no shit, you have the right to defend yourself if someone else initiates harm against you. We have these very fundamental, simple principles that you live by, I live by, as much as we possibly can.
Mhm.
And the more people can understand these principles,
Mm.
the more we live by principles, the more we live in alignment with natural law, the more that freedom increases in the aggregate. And that's what Passio calls the law of freedom, is as morality increases in the collective, as we do more moral actions and don't initiate harm against others, then freedom also increases. It has to, because there's less coercion, there's less violence, and therefore there can be more freedom. There's more room for freedom in society. So
Mm.
that's really the fundamental thing. If there's one thing that's inspiring all my music behind all of the lyrics and some of these really fast bars that I'm spitting,
Yeah.
behind all of that is the most simple principles of do not initiate harm against others, right? It's really simple. So,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
I'm grateful to Passio for kind of codifying some of these things and explaining them in a way that, at least to me, makes a whole lot of sense. And I know there's other teachers out there. Howard's a great teacher of this stuff. You're a great teacher of this stuff. There's lots
Mhm.
of great teachers of
Thank
this
you.
stuff out there. And the
Mhm.
more teachers of this there are, the more we can live in alignment with these fundamental principles and move into higher levels of freedom in the aggregate, to
Mm.
where we have the ability to have, for example, free energy technologies, which have been black shelved and suppressed since the early 1900s and probably
Yeah.
before that, right?
Yep.
Technologies that would allow you to go in, and any health issue that you might have, whether it's something really small to a broken bone, to a cancer, to a skin issue, you could just go and lie in a bed for 30 minutes and have complete physical restoration of your life force and your bodily function, right? Or have energy technology that would allow something like this size to power an entire home, or potentially even an entire neighborhood, or entire city,
Yep.
where we could be flying around in ships, where we have all of our food growing in beautiful gardens inside an indoor ship that can dematerialize and fly halfway across the realm, and we can go around and travel and have complete freedom and autonomy to do whatever the fuck we want whenever the fuck we want. Excuse my language, but it's
Yeah,
the stuff that I'm passionate about. This is why freedom is it matters.
that's right.
Because without the freedom, without us defending our freedom and taking our freedom, then
Mm,
these technologies and these superhuman mystical abilities that humans do have innately and that we've forgotten about, if we start to take back our freedom, then we can also take back the access, which is our birthright, to have technologies that would allow us to live in perfect harmony with Mother Nature and to
mm,
be able to actually, cities, there's talk about the ancient cities of Atlantis and Lemuria where cities were actually just levitating. And
mm,
if we could actually move ourselves completely off of the surface of the earth and be levitating and flying around, then all of the beautiful life forms that are here on the earth would actually be able to restore themselves to perfect harmony, and all the jungles would be able to restore themselves because we're not down
wow.
here hacking away on the surface of the earth trying to take different things and burn this and dump plastic in the ocean and all the stuff that we're doing that to destroy the environment.
Mm,
And along that topic, they want to continue pushing the mind control in the direction of, oh, there's this this elusive thing of climate change, and they want to lump all of the environmentalists into climate change, which
yeah.
they have no evidence that this is even actually exists at all. It's just this blanket term to describe all the environmental problems that we face and then blame it on humans and make us
Mm,
hate ourselves for
yeah.
causing the environmental harm, when in
Mm,
reality it's our lack of understanding of natural law that's causing the environmental harm.
mm,
It's the giant cartels that are in cahoots with the government, using force, deadly force, to force their environmentally toxic ways on the rest of the people who have no ability to defend themselves. When a government wants to go into Afghanistan and take all the poppy fields and take all the oil and uses an entire military to just take down a government's leadership so that they
mm,
can go in there and take whatever resources they want through a cartel. That's what a cartel is,
mm,
right? But through our understanding of morality and natural law, we can take back all of the technologies that would allow us to live in perfect harmony with the earth and have a
mm,
much larger, much more thriving population, and be able to build buildings that would actually last for eternity, and that's why some of these buildings that are still alive today, I'm gonna stop rambling here in a second. I know I'm going off right now, but
it's
one of the
beautiful,
things I've
dude.
been studying with
Mhm.
my partner, Jen, is this idea of Tartaria. Is this something you've looked into?
Yeah, dude, looks like there was a previous civilization, but go ahead.
Right. Yeah, and it's like this is one of the things is it's very obvious now to me that there was a previous advanced civilization, but it wasn't 4,000, 8,000, 12,000 years ago, probably back then as well. But the
Mm,
advanced civilization was as recently as like the early 1900s or the mid
yeah.
1800s that we had advanced technology, right?
Mm,
And what is the real purpose of all these giant wars, World War One, World War Two? We don't even actually really know the history of it because history is a lie that's agreed upon, right?
right.
And so we don't actually know the reason for these wars, but in my opinion now, the purpose of them was to suppress technology, limit, cull the Earth's population and carpet bomb as many of these ancient buildings and cities as we possibly could,
Mm,
to remove them and traumatize the human experience into forgetting about the past that was so recent, right?
yeah.
If we can forget about a past, maybe 3 generations ago where we had access to advanced technology that would allow us to have infinite energy, fly around the earth in a matter of seconds, and restore
Mhm.
ultimate health and vitality to any human being in a matter of seconds. If we remembered that we had access to that technology, like not 10, 15 generations ago, but maybe 2 or 3 generations ago, if we
Mm,
remember that, if we collectively wake up to that, that could be one of the most powerful revelations, because we would realize, oh wow, we've just let this parasitic ruling class, take all of this technology away, and as Larkin Rose shows in the tiny dot, there's so many more of us than there are of
oh,
them, and
oh
all
yeah.
it requires is for us to just collectively wake up, and as soon as we do that, we just flip the game board over, and it's all over.
Right.
So that's where I think we're getting to,
Hmm.
and the study of all these things like Tartaria and ancient technology and the pyramids and stuff like that. it's enlightening because it reminds us of our true potential. It reminds us
Hmm.
that we could lift 200-ton blocks of stone with probably our singing voice, you know?
Mm, yes.
Not with heavy machinery, not with slaves and logs and vine growths, but with or some kind of frequency, we could probably lift these massive stones and move them from a quarry miles and miles away and create pyramids that are perfectly aligned with the Earth's
Yeah.
electromagnetic fields and create giant resonating temples that allow us to time travel and have magnificent capabilities. And that's what I think
Mm.
the capabilities of humanity truly are. So,
Right. No, great, great words, brother. A couple things there. One is the energy thing, and I want to just give the audience some resources because part of being educated and visionary people, as you are, Grant, and the listeners here, like we're the ones we wait for, guys. Like there's nobody at the top who's going to save us. It's us to put these things together. You can tell Grant's did a lot of research. There's a documentary called The Lost Century by Dr. Stephen Greer, and he goes through 100 years, the last 100 years, like you said, of all these technologies that have been black shelf, patented, destroyed because the oil cartel, if if we have these free energy devices, which I think is inevitable, hopefully in our lifetime for the each individual home, then we don't need their coal plants. We don't need their oil and all these things which they are siphoning off of us, and we're trading our life for money. And so we would have all this leisure time that we can build and create. So he shows all these technologies, and then in Foster Gamble's Thrive 2, he
yep.
shows another technology in there from Africa, and it's amazing. He also mentions voluntarism as well. So these types of ideas are starting to rise, and I think for the people at the highest levels that are the fake celebrities, artists, etc., I think they're starting to feel the house of cards is falling with beneath them, and the new people are rising. So for the people out there, understand where we are in history. Like this is well aptly said, freedom is ours for the taking. Yes, creator source gave us our energy, our freedom at birth, but it's up to us to go and get it. Like we can get a membership to the gym, but we ain't gonna get a six pack and get buff. We actually got to go do the work. We got to go take the six pack, take the deadlift or whatever type of lift that you're doing, and do it for yourself. So this is, I think, where we're at is a very exciting time in history that Grant and I can have this conversation without permission from anybody. And we're coming to the top of the hour, brother. So we could go on for hours, and I think we should do
Yeah.
this another time. Um, what is your take on the censorship that maybe you've experienced, getting your hottest song deleted off Spotify and any other platforms or solutions that you might have here, maybe in the last 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah, the censorship is definitely a real thing. My song Scam that I wrote during COVID, which called out the scam of the COVID and the scams of governments and all that, that got deleted off of Spotify within 1 week of me releasing it. I don't know if that was because somebody reported it. There was a couple people in my life who were super, super, super triggered by that song and started sending me hate mail every day. And maybe one of them
Ugh.
reported it to Spotify. But regardless, I mean,
Mm,
just because somebody reports something doesn't mean that this giant music platform should have the right to take it down, in my opinion.
mm,
But, all of these giant platforms that have a monopoly on so much of the content that people are consuming,
yeah.
I think we have to take it upon ourselves. And this is something that I need to really work on is, working on, I was talking to Dave before we went live about, multi-streaming, which is the ability
Yeah.
to stream to multiple
Hmm.
platforms at the same time. So I could be streaming to YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, all of the, big daddy mommy owned platforms, but then also
Yeah.
be streaming to D Live at the same time, which is decentralized, and be finding
Hmm.
other outlets for the media. And that's something that I really need to be working on more and more. If there's anybody out there, by the way, who has good media skills and wants to
Yeah.
just help me with my social media as far as pushing content out to more platforms. I know, big voices like Max Egan have people like that who help them to just, push their content out to a lot of platforms and repost stuff. That's something I'm working on. So I think we just have to, like you said, we have to take it. We have to take it upon ourselves to use what's out there. And I think examples like BitChute, beautiful example.
Yeah.
Max Egan, a friend of mine, just passed 100,000 subscribers on BitChute. I mean, that's a
Wow.
big deal. That's a
Yeah.
lot of people who
Yeah,
are
it is.
watching his content on a platform that just a few years ago didn't even exist. And it
Yeah.
was born completely out of necessity because of how all of the mainstream platforms were taking down large numbers of creators to the point
Hmm.
where almost every single person I subscribed to on YouTube a few years ago was completely removed from the platform. And so now
Wow.
we've been forced to migrate to other things like BitChute and Odyssey and other decentralized options that are not censored.
Hmm.
And I think that's beautiful. And the more of us who get over there and start pushing content out there, like if I go on BitChute, it's way more interesting stuff than what I'm going to see on YouTube. Like YouTube just feeds like my stupid, obsession with cars and mindless stuff that doesn't really elevate my life in a real way. But when I go on BitChute, I'm being, surrounded by amazing information that's world-changing information. So I
Mm.
think we just have to opt out, or at least be using multiple platforms simultaneously to the best of our ability,
Mm.
to get past the censorship. And I think the censorship is just proof that they know they're losing the battle,
Yeah.
because if they were winning the battle, they wouldn't care. They would just be like, whatever, leave it up. I think that's why they've left certain topics up on YouTube and taken down others, because they know that, there's just not enough people who are engaging with that material for it to be a legitimate threat to their authority. But when they
Hmm.
realize that there's a legitimate threat to their authority, then they go and start taking people down and start censoring stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think it shows when we do get censored, it's a reminder that we're over the target. I just
Hmm.
met a painter. I'll keep this short, but I just met a really cool graffiti artist in Kingston at the Kingston Dub Club, and he paints murals. They're like graffiti murals, but he gets permission to paint them, and a lot of times they get painted over within 24 hours of him painting the mural. A lot of times,
Wow.
because they're just powerful and they speak a message of truth, and people
Yeah.
realize, oh man, that's too truthful. We can't let that stay up, or people might revolt against the local government or whatever. So
Hmm.
that's my piece on censorship. I think that the
Hmm.
more we continue to uplift independent creators, independent platforms, going and subscribing to people's individual websites. Like David Icke has his own website, Iconic Media. There's plenty of examples of independent creators in the alternative media who are creating their own platforms and allowing you to subscribe to them directly. And then also these third-party decentralized platforms, I think, are a really good option as well. So that's what I'm working on more of myself personally, is pushing content out to, not just Instagram, because it's all pay to play, feed the algorithm. If you feed the algorithm, you get views. If you don't, then you don't. So
Hmm.
that's kind of where I think we're at. So should we leave it with
Yeah.
a couple songs for the audience, and then I know we got to get going here pretty soon.
Yes, yes. Let me make one last comment here because there's so much, dude. Okay, so
Yeah.
new platforms. What I heard is there's a group of technology companies that are captured and some ones that are not. I think BitChute, Odyssey. I forgot about D Live as well. And so for some of the technologists out there, put some of these solutions in the comments here, and or reach out to Grant or myself or whatever. But we're on the winning team. That's what I want to emphasize. We're on the winning team, and now it's just a matter of getting more people, getting the message out there, changing our habits, changing our beliefs, and actually working on our inner man, our inner woman out there for the ladies, because there's nothing outside of us. It's all within inside of us. And the callback to the thing about the children was that I believe every child's a born genius. So Grant has his gifts, I have mine, but you have yours, listener. And there's so many types of intelligences. So it's a matter of finding out how you can participate in the great self-ownership awakening. And I don't think it's a revolution, it's an evolution of consciousness, of self-knowledge and self-growth, self-love, and collaboration and community. And so I just want to emphasize that there as we go out here. And yeah, play is, yeah, maybe we got a few minutes here and to share whatever man, so much, dude. We got to come back. But go
Yeah,
ahead
we'll
and
do
wrap
this
up however you
again.
want. Yeah.
Comment down below. Make sure you subscribe, comment, like, share this with everyone. Dave is also working on expanding his platforms out, and the more that we just share this knowledge and spread this out far and wide, the better for everyone. So, yeah, dude, thanks so much for having me on today, and I think we're so on the same page about so many things, and so grateful to have you as an ally in this freedom battle. So, I'm gonna
Yeah.
play your
So
favorite song here, and
okay,
we'll
okay.
take it
So,
out.
before we take it out, so where can people find you, and then we'll let you kind of close this episode.
Yeah, so all of my music is available at my website. It's prezencemusic.com, spelled Prezence. So you can think of it like the Zen, Zen in presence, Prezence, music.com. And it's all there for free. Just share it, like it, subscribe, push it out to as many people as possible. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing it for the love of humanity. I forgot the word again. What's the word?
Agape love.
Agape. Doing it for agape. So
Yeah, me too, brother.
we're gonna take it out with a song. This is Dave's favorite song right here. I hope you guys
Yeah.
enjoy. My camera's about to die. Let's hope that it survives. Ours for the taking. Okay, you know what? History now in the making, I say. Fuck the government, al gobierno. No, they only exist to take your money and your dinero. I ain't scared of nothing, I ain't moving, I ain't budging. Lot of population trusting for the bullshit we be cutting. Assess the situation if you want liberation. No disinformation, pollute your clear mind. Some be caught up in the lies, must be all the fluoride. Nighty night, keeping them mindless, spineless, fine with it. I got no time for this. Taking a trip into the future, no master, no slave. Gonna be living with our rulers by any measure. We maneuver, no jabbing, no booster. Cause we Rasta and recruiters and we villain prosecutors, hey. History now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. Yes, history now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. Yes, history now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. History now in the making. I say. Hey yo, I love to see me brethren standing up to tyranny. The sound of freedom resonating like a symphony. We ain't no fringe minority, a threat to authority. When we coming together, activate a silent majority. See, most people don't wanna rock the boat. They're afraid to go against the grain, and the system keeps them broke. So they comply till our freedoms implode. Wondering how they became the fascist at the end of the road. Let's go. History now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. I say, history now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking, yes. History now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. History now in the making. I say, because collective consciousness rising, the truth is so inspiring when we shine under this high state of mind. You know, mankind is intelligently designed, in love with this beautiful life, humanity living and breathing and thrive when we step into what is aligned. Hey, my people ready to rise up. Let's move into the new paradigm, yes, and break the chains of the past. Ascend into the brighter future, yes. History now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. I say, history now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. History now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. History now in the making. Okay, history now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. History now in the making. Freedom ours for the taking. History now in the making. Freedom is ours for the taking. History now in the making. Yes, it's ours for the taking. Yeah.
Woo! The anthem, my brothers and sisters. Thank you, Grant. Thank you for listeners. We are building a world based on consent, self-ownership, and freedom. It is inevitable. There will be a voluntary world, hopefully in our lifetime. And either way, it will happen for the children and the grandchildren. So thank you, Grant, for being here. Much love and respect, brother. We'll see you on the next episode of Voluntary Living. Peace and love.